Whatever question you're answering, structuring them appropriately is crucial. Answers with structure have a natural progression to them and are significantly easier to follow. They help the interviewer see how what you have to say all ties together. Structure is one of the most important parts of communication, which is a key skill needed as a doctor, so this is a perfect opportunity to demonstrate. The framework you use for your answers is point, example, explanation. So you make a point and in response to a question, and after that you then provide some evidence to back it up, and then you explain how it relates to medicine. This gives your answers direction and makes them a lot more concise. If, for example, you're asked about your ability to work in a team, you then make a point, usually by stating that you have a certain important skill, such as I have good team working skills. When choosing a point to make, it's best to use it from the list of key skills and attributes that we have later on. This is the list of key things that universities are looking for students to demonstrate in their interviews. You will then want to give an example. The reason this is so important is it shows that you're able to prove you've demonstrated this quality in some way. For example, anyone can say, I have good team working skills, but you need to provide concrete evidence that you have exhibited this skill in one way or another. You also need to be familiar enough with your own examples so that you can bring the right one into the right context at the right time. Remember, you're trying to show the interviewers that you have the right qualities to make a good doctor, and appropriate examples of this are the best sources of evidence you can provide to prove your point. Giving every point you make an example to back it up gives your answers significantly more power. This is why the table of key skills and attributes that we advise making later on is so important. Once you've made your point and example, you then want to say how it's relevant to medicine. This means that you're aware of why these skills are used in the first place and where they get used in a clinical setting. So a good example of a question that uses this framework is, when I was on my work experience, I saw the importance of teamwork when I observed how doctors responded to a patient having a cardiac arrest. From this, I learned the multidisciplinary nature of healthcare and how it's essential in emergency situations, as team members with differing responsibilities had to be aware of their specific job to contribute effectively towards the patient's care. Explaining the relevance of your original point to medicine is important because it brings your answers back to what makes them useful in the first place, and it shows that you know how they are used in a clinical environment and in a hospital. In some questions, if you're being asked if there was anything interesting that you saw while you were on your work experience or out and about, then it can make it a bit difficult to demonstrate your own personal skills and attributes. That's absolutely fine. You can just use the example and explanation section to show that you witnessed what skills are being used and why. So an example of a question that is observational that uses this framework goes as follows. I was fortunate enough to see a central arterial line being placed in while I was on my ICU work experience. The attention to detail and level of skill needed to do this correctly showed me how in medicine, dedication over long periods of time is needed to develop competency in various practical and non-practical skills. Additionally, the communication between the doctor and the patient was not overloaded with medical terminology and helped put the patient at ease. This showed me how important these skills are in helping the patient to feel involved in the treatment process. So using the point example framework helps to avoid making vague and uncertain statements. You want your answers to convey a concrete amount of knowledge and create an impression that you are demonstrating these skills that they're looking for. So terms such as I like medicine because it's interesting aren't enough, because they aren't packing in enough good information that shows that you're demonstrating these skills. And you always want to back up your points with examples and then link them into how they are relevant to medicine in the first place.